नमस्कार. गार्गीं वाचक नवीं वन्दे मैत्रेयीं च तदनन्तरं सर्वाश्च ता इतरा या हि याभिः ब्रह्मैषणा कृता. The meaning is very clear that first of all I pay my respect to Gargi Vachak Navi, then after that to Maitreyi, and even other women. We are talking only about women here. Even the other women, Yabhihi Brahma Ishana Kruta. Brahma Ishana is the quest for Brahma, the jnana for understanding Brahma, that is to have the ultimate reality, the knowledge of ultimate reality. And today we are going to talk about all these women from Indian philosophical background who have been there in ancient India. By ancient India, I just mean Vedas and Upanishads. Okay. And then, of course, I'll give references to others also. And at the very outset, let me ask you a question. Whether you know the details or not about Gargi and Maitreyi and everybody, you still have heard the names, right? Have you ever heard a name of a Western philosopher, a Western woman philosopher? Ever? I searched and searched and searched and found absolutely no woman philosopher at all. So this is something which is unique to India. The other day we saw how women were educated, and therefore we know that there was this RTE, whatever you call it, right to education, which even the women were granted. They used to perform, the society used to perform their Upanayana, and they used to go to the Gurukula and learn everything. So they were intelligent, smart philosophers, physicists. You will see everything when we discuss that now. But they are called Brahmavadini. Brahma is ultimate reality. That is the best translation I can have for Brahma. And Vadini is those who talk about that. So Brahmavadini, in other words, is a philosopher. Okay. So she is a philosopher and she is called Brahmavadini. This reminds me of a very funny thing. And it's a nice thing, you know. There is one Smruti called, Smruti is a type of literature. Manusmruti is known all over the world. So this Smruti is called Harita Smruti. Okay, it's quite modern. And for Sanskritists, especially who study the Vedic lore and all, modern is maybe 800 AD or something, you know, that is maybe 1500 years back from today. So this Harita Smruti tells you, amongst many other things, that there are women students of two types. Okay. One, the first one and most important are Brahmavadinis. We know what they are now. And the second one, Harita tells you with a, I think, sense of humor, that they are called Sadhyo Vadhu. Vadhu, you know. Vadhu, we know. Vadhu is a bride. And Sadhya is immediately. That means these are girls who go to Gurukula till they get married off. This happens even today. This happened even when I was a student. That girl students would be doing MA terms till such time that they got picked up by a groom or they were supposed to get married. So they were Sadyovadhu, but others were Brahmavadini. And before I go to Gargi Maitreyi, I said that I pay my respect to even those who have who had this desire to know the ultimate reality of some type, you know. I mean, everybody doesn't do Brahma Jnana, but some might do Atma Jnana, some might do Panchabhuta Jnana, Panchamahabhuta Jnana and all. We will start with Bharati. Okay. Now, Bharati comes from the 8th century AD, which is only 1200 years back, 1200 years back. Who was Bharati? Bharati was the wife of a great philosopher called Mandana Mishra. And this Mandana Mishra was a kind of, there was a rivalry between Mandana Mishra and Adi Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya lived in the 8th century AD. So Shankaracharya wanted to have a debate with him. You must have heard these names, Purva Paksha, Pratipaksha, and all those things. He wanted to have a debate with Mandana Mishra. So Shankaracharya went to his place, that village, whatever it was. And then he asked, he didn't know the exact location of the house. So he asked the women who were washing clothes on the banks of the river. He said, do you know anyone, or do you know, can you guide me to the house of one Mr. Mandana Mishra? And you know what these women told him? They said, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. They said, go straight ahead. And where the Shuka and Sarika, the birds, the parrots from the cage, are talking about Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. They are talking about the highest kind of philosophy. That is the house of Mandana Mishra. What they want to say is that in that house, it is always philosophy that goes on and rings and falls on the ears of even the birds. So, such a great person, Mandana Mishra, he had his wife named Bharati. Now Shankaracharya comes there, they talk, they decide that we should have a debate. But see, you also need a judge. You also need an umpire for everything, every game. You need a judge for every debate. Who would be judge? Please remember, a judge has to be better than the contestants, right? And he must understand, or she must understand, everything that has been said. And Mandana Mishra tells Shankaracharya, don't worry, my wife Bharati is capable of being a judge, and let her be the judge. Shankaracharya, of course, accepts that. And then they decide and they start their debate. And of course, Shankaracharya wins. Bharati gives this decision that you have won. But at the same time, she says, now, can you have a debate with me, that is with Bharati? Shankaracharya he doesn't even wait for a moment and he says, oh yes, of course, why not? And then Bharati has a debate with him on subjects in which Shankaracharya had absolutely no knowledge. She talks to him about Garhapatya, that is married life and all. And so Shankaracharya was defeated. But please remember that Bharati is the only person in the 8th century who had the knowledge and courage to defeat Shankaracharya. And so I feel that she deserves a very prominent place in the entire history of Indian philosophy. Right? You will agree with me. So this is Bharati. Now we suddenly jump to the Vedic and Upanishadic period. In Rigveda, there are many names of not exactly philosophers, but Brahmavadinis who have been writing suktas. I think we talked about that a little in our previous lecture. And they are like Vak or Raka. They write not high-level philosophy, but they are still pursuing philosophy. And maybe you have heard this, but we have to know what is philosophy. Philo is love, and Sophia is knowledge. Philosophy is love for knowledge. In that sense, all these three rishis, they were philosophers, and we must give them their due credit. After Vedic Samhitas, Then suddenly there is a literature called Brahmanas, Aranyakas, which is entirely liturgical. That is, it deals only with rites and rituals, yajna and everything. There is some kind of philosophy about yajna, but not metaphysics. And therefore, we won't consider that part at all. Anyway, no woman priest is ever mentioned, so we would leave that away. Then we come to Upanishads and even some of the ancillary texts of Rigveda. As we know that Indian tradition right from Vedic times have been offering not only to gods, that is yajna, but offering food and water even to they are called manes, Manes, or what we call pitaras. We know that, right? And when you offer something to pitaras to show how it is different from the one way you do it for gods, is you put everything on your right thumb and from here you pour water or whatever food you have to give and all. And the pitaras, who are they? They are not necessarily your father, grandfather, great grandfather, and all those in the same family, but they are also some very important rishis in that tradition. In the Rigvedic tradition, there are names of 21 such rishis. Okay? And one of them is a woman. Her name is Sulabha Brahmavadini. I always feel, I mean, I have read this so many times, I have talked about it so many times, but every time I wonder, what must have she done? What must have she said, that she got in the same line as the other rishis like Vasishtha, Vamadeva, Vishwamitra? We don't know, because unfortunately, not much of her work or not much of her philosophy is recorded anywhere. Not in the Upanishads, certainly not. And you know that many of our good texts, whether philosophical or ritual, they were destroyed when there was foreign aggression on our country. They actually, started fire and they burned down our manuscripts. Anyway, that really makes me agitated. So anyway, not much is known about Sulabha Brahmavadini, except that she was somehow associated with Janaka Vaideha, that is, she was probably in his court. We are going to come to Janaka Vaideha again. So even though she is not mentioned in the Upanishads, she is mentioned, not only mentioned, but there is a big dialogue, samvada between Janaka and this Sulabha Brahmavadini, which has a place in Mahabharata. So if you read Mahabharata, you will realize how Janaka asks questions, she answers, and then how she counter questions him and all those things. So even in Mahabharata, this Sulabha Brahmavadini, who has a tradition from Rigvedic Tarpana Vidhi, we found her there as well. Really, she must have been a great philosopher. Now I told you that we are going to come back to Janaka Vaideha again and again. The name is familiar to you all, right? Janaka, the only Janaka we know from entire mythology, is the father of Sita in Ramayana. And of course, the name there also is Janaka Vaideha for the simplest reason that he was the king of the kingdom of Videha Desh. This Janaka Vaideha, unlike many rulers and many kings, was extremely interested not only in power, but in many other good things like spiritualism, philosophy, metaphysics, and knowledge in general. Okay? So, what he had done was, in his court, there were many philosophers. Just as in one's court, a king would have maybe minister for war and education and to look after the accounts and all. Janaka Vaideha had a philosopher in his court. This would show you that he really had this great not only desire but respect for knowledge. And now if you just look around today's political world, we see that there is absolutely no respect for such things. Forget about jnana and forget about philosophy. They don't even have respect for human beings per se. Anyway, so coming back to Janaka Vaideha, who was the court philosopher in his court? His name was Yajnavalkya. This Yajnavalkya is closely associated with both Gargi and Vachaknavi. So it's important that we know a little bit about him as well. He was the son of a Rishi called Brahmarata and was a student of Vaishampayana. Now this Vaishampayana again we meet in Mahabharata. So there is some kind of, contemporaneity between Janaka Vaideha, Vaishampayana, or probably, they were position names. That any king who comes to Videha will be called Janaka. Just as any king, even today, who comes and rules Thailand is called Rama. Though the country is Buddhist, the king is always called Rama. Of course, now they have uh, added a number to that, Rama the first, Rama the second, and all. But he is always Rama. So probably Janaka Vaideha was the name of that position. Now, Yajnavalkya was a very intelligent, smart philosopher, and he used to have very deep thinking. It was not, I mean, he didn't care about what he got from the king because he himself had a Gurukula where he used to teach many students with the help of his two wives, Maitreyi and Katyayani, and he was also a court philosopher. Now, Janaka always wanted to hold what is known in those times as Brahmodya. Brahma now we know, and Brahmodya is a seminar in which people come and talk about Brahman, the ultimate reality. That is a seminar or a workshop on philosophy. People from all over the country, not only Videha, but maybe Kuru, Panchala, Magadha, and all, they would gather together and discuss a particular topic. And Yajnavalkya used to be, something like a compere, or he would be the judge also. And Janaka also used to ask questions, which is a very important thing. Then one day, Janaka thought that maybe, this uh, actually, then this would lead me to Gargi. But first, I want to talk about Maitreyi, and we will end with our description of Gargi. So, Yajnavalkya, after doing all his philosophical discourses and discussions, and when he thought that he has had enough and he should now retire, and not only retire, he should now take sannyasa. All this time, he was a gruhastha-ashrami. He had wife, not only a wife, he had two wives. Maitreyi, about whom we are going to talk, and Katyayani, who is also, according to me, equally important. So both of them used to look after his Gurukula. You know that in Gurukula, the students would stay there, eat and sleep, everything. It was a residency. And therefore, these women must have been busy all their lives taking care of and feeding the students. When Yajnavalkya said that he calls both his wives and says, Parivrajishanva are ahamasmi. I want to take sannyasana. Now, this is so important that in those days, if you want to take sannyasa, you have to take permission. If you are married, that of your wife, and if you are unmarried, then of your parents. By permission, I mean, you at least inform them. But most of the times it was permission, anumati, it is called. And then he says that, oh, I want to take sannyasa. I hope you don't mind. And typical pativrata wives that they were, they said, okay, we accept your decision, whatever it is. Then he says, this is a beautiful story. And I must tell you one very important thing about our philosophy, especially the Upanishadic philosophy, which has any philosophy, even Advaita Tattvajnana or Vayu Samvarga Vidya, whatever it always have a framework of a story. So, you are first, you get attracted to the story, and then you don't know where the story stops and philosophy starts. This story comes in what is known as Bruhadaranyaka Upanishad. Okay? It is Bruhat, it is big, and it's an Upanishad. So, but surprisingly, it is called not Upanishad when the story comes, and it comes twice in that Upanishad, 2 times. Both the times it is called Maitreyi Brahmana. Brahmana is another type of literature that is about the Brahman. And what I like the most is, it is not called Yajnavalkya Brahmana, it is called Maitreyi Brahmana. So whosoever was the editor, he knew what Maitreyi was doing there. And this is his way of appreciation for her. So Yajnavalkya says, calls both of them, and he says, before I leave, whatever little property I have collected, I want to divide them amongst you too. It was probably a natural thing because the Gurukul will be closed now and they would have to take care of themselves, stand on their own feet. Stri Prajna Tarhi Katyayani. Upanishad says, Katyayani was Stri Prajna. I purposely use this word because I don't like it. Stri Prajna has been used in a slightly derogatory sense. That her buddhi was only as much as a woman would have. That's not a fair thing to say to a woman, or not only woman, to anyone. I mean, Stri Prajna. So she accepts, she says, okay, whatever you give me, the pots and pans and food and grains and money, I am happy with that. And Maitreyi says, and this is very important, now I just cannot help myself. I will have to quote Sanskrit text, and it's beautiful poetry and wonderful philosophy. Anyway, she comes and says, hey Yajnavalkya, suppose Sarvayam Prithvi Vittena Paripurna Syat. If you give me this entire earth full of vitta, that is dhana or wealth of some sorts of other, maybe cattle, maybe houses, maybe clothes or whatever. If you give me that, syadaham tena amruta, will I have the knowledge of Atman by that? Now just imagine that. Amruta is another name in Upanishads for Atman. Syadaham Amruta means literally, will I have the knowledge of Atman by all this wealth? Yajnavalkya smiles and he says, Amrutatvasya tu na asha asti vittena. I'm very sure that this Upanishadic Sanskrit, even you must have understood, even though you have not learned Sanskrit formally. Amrutatvasya na asha asti vittena. Just because you have money doesn't mean you will get Atmajnana. Money doesn't buy knowledge. There was no capitation fee in those days. If you want to have knowledge, you have to pursue it. You have to go after it, and only then you will get knowledge. And then he gives her another uh, advice. He says, Yatha vai upakarnavatam jivitam sya. Just as if you have all this wealth, you will lead a life of upakaranavat. Upakarana is instruments. These are instruments of happiness. I have 2 houses, 1 farmhouse, 7 mobiles, 10 cars, lots of gold, and maybe a bank account in Switzerland. I don't know that. But he says, even if you have all this wealth, all these instruments of happiness or instruments of knowledge, that does not guarantee that you will have Atmajna. Now just see Maitreyi's reaction. She says, oh, if I'm not going to get knowledge with all that money, what is the use of getting that money? I don't want that money at all. Which shows that she is not interested in material pleasure, but she is interested in higher level of knowledge. And she says, if that is so, teach me about Atmadhyana. Don't give me any money. I don't want that. Yajnavalkya, of course, again smiles at her and he says, oh, you have always been dear to me, but today you become more endeared to me. I love you more today because here is a wife who has shown interest in something which is beyond material things. And then whatever Yajnavalkya tells is considered to be the crux of Upanishadic philosophy. And so it is very important. But he says, now see, suddenly their relationship changes now. He says, listen to me carefully. Vyachakshamanasya me nididhyasitavya iti. Whatever I tell you, whatever I'm analyzing for you, pay attention. So she is paying attention. And that is what I mean, that the relationship changed. He was a husband and she was a wife. It was a relationship on a very different level. Now suddenly that relationship had changed to Guru Shishya, right? He is the Guru and she is going to be Shishya. And believe me, you will agree with me that to learn anything from a husband is not a simple job. You can learn from anyone else, but learning something from a husband is difficult. But Maitreyi does that. She completes that education. Anyway, Yajnavalkya says, and now just as Maitreyi has to pay attention, please pay attention to all the words which Yajnavalkya uses. He says, Nava are patyuh kamaya patih priyo bhavati, atmanastu kamaya patih priyo bhavati. You understood, right? That you don't love your husband for the sake of he being a husband, but you love his soul, Atman. I don't want to translate the words as soul. So you have to remember that Atman is most important. And just see, Yajnavalkya is not only intelligent, he is really smart. The first example, the first sentence he takes is from the Bhava Vishwa of Maitreyi. For her, he is her husband, she is the wife. So he gives this example of a husband and wife. Then he talks about sons, he talks about other persons, other things. And he says, and Shankaracharya in his commentary has beautifully said this, what Yajnavalkya wants to prove in the end is Atmani Mukhya Priti. Your love, affection, respect, whatever your feelings are mainly for the Atman, not for the individuals. So in an individual, what is important is Atman. And the last sentence, which is called a Vidya Sutra, knowledge in crux, knowledge which is concise and still precise, that Vidya Sutra Again, I would repeat that from Upanishads, from Brihadaranyaka. Yajnavalkya says, Atma va are drashtavyaha, shrotavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha. What does this mean? He says, Atma has to be seen in the sense not, you can't first have a realization, sakshatkara of Atman, but that is you have to look for it. For that, shrotavyaha, you have to hear about it, you have to listen to your guru. In those days, as we all know, it was only a oral transmission, and guru would talk and the students would listen. So he says you have to listen to the guru about it. Shrotavyaha, mantavyaha, and then go back home and try to understand what you learned in the class today. That is manana, mantavyaha. But he goes one step ahead and uses a fantastic word, nididhyasitavyaha. You have to take dhyas, you have to go crazy about that particular subject. And this Vidya Sutra is true not only for Atman, but for anything that you learn, for anything, even if you do maths and it is some theorem from maths, then first you hear about it, then you think about it, and then you get totally involved and uh, you get drowned in it, And therefore, he says, Nididhyasitavyaha. Sureshwaracharya, a later commentator, calls this a Vidya Sutra, which is such a beautiful word. Now, Maitreyi is not a pretentious student. She listens to all this, and like it's a clean bolt on the very first ball. She says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did not understand anything. You say that Atman is everywhere in you, in my husband, my sons, this, that, and I don't see it. How can I see that? I mean, how can I believe you?" Here again, there is one more thing which Upanishads do, which is done nowhere in the philosophical world, not ever in any part of the world. And that is, they prove their philosophy by performing some experiments, empirical method, as they say, And what are these methods? They make a philosophical lab, so to say. Yajnavalkya says, okay, Maitreyi, you don't see Atman, so you can't believe it. I understand. But I'm tired. Get me a glass of, not glass, a pot full of water. So she brings a pot full of water. Now get me Saindhava. Saindhava, he uses the word Saindhava Khilya, a piece of Saindhava. See, salt was used from those days, and the very fact that they gave the name Saindhava, that is something which comes from Sindhu, the ocean. Just imagine what kind of salt pains they must be having and all those. Anyway, so she brings Saindhava also. Then he says, okay, put it in the water and stir it properly. She does that. She's yet wondering, how is this going to prove that Atman is everywhere, even though you don't see? Then he says, okay, now test it from the left corner. She tests it and says it is salty. From the right corner, salty. From the middle, salty. Upwards, salty. So everywhere it is salty. Can you show me the salt which had made the water salty? She says, no, I can't. I can feel the taste, but I cannot show you the salt anymore. He says, this is precisely how Atman needs to be perceived. Perceive is a very good word in English, which shows you drashtavya, shotavya, etc. I know this simile is not a perfect one for Atman, but Maitreyi was convinced, because this is how she came to know that Atman, which is everywhere in this world, in this universe, cannot be seen, and yet its existence we must accept. Later, she says, okay, I kind of understand this, but I don't accept it. I still am not sure how can this this was feeling, tasting, how can I say that if I don't see something, then I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe that. He says, okay, can you hear Veena? Somebody is playing Veena somewhere. Do you hear that? And she says, oh, yes, I can hear that. Just see how he gives different examples, different similes, or rather different proofs, so that she will be convinced of what he wants to say. Then he says, oh, good, you can hear the beautiful music. Do you see the Veena? She said, no. Oh, do you see the Veena Vadaka? No, I can't see that. And still you can hear the music. Then he also gives example of a talavarya, percussion instrument. He also gives an example of shankha, that is sushira, where you blow air and the instrument makes sound. And then he says, just as, I mean, again, like I said, just please remember that these are not perfect examples, but for a beginner like Maitreyi, these examples are amazing. She understands, she accepts, and then she says to Yajnavalkya, yes, but you know something? I still get a little more confused when you talk like this. And then Yajnavalkya tells her about what we call Advaita Tattvajnana. Advaita Tattvajnana, by definition, is called as Vedanta Tattvajnana, which Adi Shankaracharya propounded in a very big way. And what is Advaita Tattvajnana? Now, this is again Yajnavalkya talking to Maitreyi. And please remember, Maitreyi has doubts at every stage. She does not accept everything that Yajnavalkya says just because he happens to be her husband. No, she's paying attention. She has doubts. She has understood. And therefore, she can ask pertinent questions, which is very important. We always say, that if you have a doubt, which at least shows that you have been paying attention to what I have been saying, right? In my teacher in a school one long back, he used to tell us, "Jo vichar karto, to vichar to," and which is so true. Only a person who thinks can ask doubts. So Maitreyi asks him again questions, and then he tells her that all this Atma about whose existence you are convinced, and is only the expression of the ultimate reality, which is called Brahman. And Brahman and Atma are not two different things. They are the same. The only thing is, Atman is everywhere, even Brahman is everywhere, but every person, when you have Atman, you have a part of an ansha of Brahman itself. That Brahman and Atman, and this Brahman, which is the ultimate reality, the cause of this entire creation, they are not different. There is no dichotomy, there is no dvaita, and therefore it is called advaita. They are one and the same. And this is how he convinces, and for want of time, I have to cut short a lot. But now you can imagine how he slowly develops the philosophy which Maitreyi has understood well. And ultimately, she says, yes, now I know what you were trying to tell me. I have understood everything, and thank you very much for that. And then Yajnavalkya says, okay, now I can happily take my sannyasa. Probably, I believe, that somewhere at the back of his mind, he also thought that, okay, here is a woman who, if need be, can look after my Gurukula even on an academic level. Probably that's what he thought. And if he had thought so, I would be so glad. A husband giving compliments to his wife, a guru giving a compliment to his teacher, that you will continue my tradition, is a great thing. In spite of that, I would still say that Maitreyi is kind of a passive philosopher. Philosophy, of course, she discusses, but she only discusses things which her guru has told her. But when we go to Gargi, oh my God, Gargi is one person who is amazing. Now, her full name is Gargi Vachaknavi. So people say that, we will come to her story also. People say that Vachaknu was the name of a king, and Shankaracharya says, no, no, Vachaknu was the name of a Rishi because Gargi is so great, so her father must be Rishi. Some sort of logic behind this. And that is why she is called Vachaknavi. If you ask me, she is called Vachaknavi. Vachak, you know the word Vak. And if Vachaknu means a man who is a good orator, Vachaknavi means a woman who is a wonderful orator. And I'm sure that that is why she was called Vachaknavi. Now, where do we meet her? Again, in the same Bruhadaranyaka Upanishad, where we met Maitreyi and Yajnavalkya. And in Janaka Vaideha also comes now. It is in the court of Janaka Vaideha that I told you that he used to hold Brahmodyas, philosophical discussions. And Yajnavalkya was the judge, he was the court philosopher. For these Brahmodyas, many philosophers were there, and one of them was Gargi. Just as I told you that one of the Tarpana Rishis is Sulabha Brahmavadini, here also I'm surprised. Look at the greatness of Janaka also, that he has invited a woman. Please remember, all this has happened 4,000 years back. And even in those times, if people respected women and her intelligence, then I think we have to give them credit. We have to give even these women a lot of credit, but these people also we must respect. So she was there too. And then one day, after a lot of, there were many others like Ushasta Chakra, Gargya, Kahola, and all those people, great philosophers, and Gargi was one of them. Janaka Vaideha once said, there are always discussions in our court, philosophical discussions. Let us find out who is the best one of all. And he says, for the best one, who is the best philosopher? I mean, of course, there will be a competition, and whosoever gets the first prize in debating gets 1,000 cows whose horns are adorned with gold-tipped ornaments. So just imagine, cattle was the real wealth, gold was just incidental in those days. But it still was precious. So people are looking at each other, that who thinks that he is the best? Who would say that I'm the best one and I'm taking the cattle? No one had the guts and no one had the courage. So Yajnavalkya, he is the court philosopher. He is also a great philosopher. So he calls one of his students and says, hey Saumya, oh son, come here and take all that cattle and take it to our Gurukula. And then the philosophers suddenly they get agitated. Why? We haven't even had any discussion. He says, okay, ask me questions and I'll prove that I am the greatest one. So first question is put by Ushasta Chakrayana, which Yajnavalkya easily answers. Ushasta keeps quiet. Then the second question is asked by Gargya. Yajnavalkya mutes him to, he gives the perfect answer. Then Kahola, no problem at all. And then it is the turn of Gargi. Okay. See, though Upanishad gives you only a paragraph about every philosopher, probably this went on for a whole entire evening with every philosopher. Gargi's turn was fourth, so probabilities happened on the fourth evening. And then Gargi, she first did namaskara to everybody and said, Bho Yajnavalkya, all this earth that we see, Kasmin idam jagat otam cha protam cha, this entire earth, in what is it contained, by what it is covered? We know the word otaprota, but in Marathi we use it in a very different sense. But here, ota and prota are the warp and weft, that is ubhe, adave, tantu, when you weave a cloth, a fabric. So she says, in what are they contained? What covers the earth? And he says, apaha. Then she goes one step ahead. And apa kasmin khalutat otam cha o protam cha. He says, oh, that is vayu. Okay. And in vayu, antariksha, Gargi, it is easy. Antariksha. And antariksha kasmin otam cha protam cha. Just see, she is taking him from sthula to sukshma, from macro to micro, because Prithvi is sthula. And then it's not only from macro to micro, but it is also one more thing, that the next answer is vyapaka. It contains or covers the first thing. And the most important thing is there is a cause-effect relationship. So anyway, Gargi then asks, in what is this antariksha contained? He says something like, he then goes on like Devaloka, Gandharvaloka, Chandraloka, Adityaloka, Nakshatraloka, and all those things. And Kasmin Khalu idam utam cha protam cha, her thirst for knowledge is not quenched. The others have asked only one question. She keeps on asking questions till her jidnyasa will be satisfied. Okay, so she asks, and Kasminu khalu idam brahmalok, ayam brahmalokaha otascha protascha iti. And then Yajnavalkya says, Gargi ma ati prakshihi mate murda vyapaptad iti. He says, Gargi, you are asking too many questions. Ati prashna. You are asking too many questions. I hope your head doesn't fall down. I hope your brain is able to sustain these complicated topics. He says, don't ask about something which cannot be answered or explained only by tarka, that is logic, or nyaya. For that, you need something else. Ma ati prakshihi. And then when he says that mate murdha vyapaptad, she says, she sits down and then keeps quiet. This was actually, probably in this short discussion, Yajnavalkya could not fathom how deep Gargi's knowledge and her thirst for knowledge is. And therefore, he kind of shut her off. I don't like it. Maybe it was also his, I'm sorry to say, I'm not judging anyone, I'm not commenting anyone, and I'm not blaming anyone at all. This is only my approach and my attitude, and only my guesswork, I would say, that there was also his male ego which was hurt, that she's asking questions which none other have asked, and she's asking too many questions. And I have to disclose a lot more philosophy to her. Anyway, Gargi keeps quiet and goes back home. Now see, even Ushasta Chakrayana went home. I went home in the sense, they kept quiet, sat in the court, but they kept quiet, never came back and asked any question. Gargi was restless. She wanted to know the answers to all her questions. After 4 days, she comes again to the court and doing namaskar to the Brahmanas. She says, and this again, the Sanskrit language is so beautiful, Even however good I may be at English and I translate it well, you cannot get that beauty, that deep sense. She says, Yathavai Kashova Vaidehova Ugraputraha Dvau Banavantau. Amazing it is, Now I will explain it in English. She says, just as Ugraputraha, a brave soldier from either Kashi or Videha. Of course, she is standing in the court of Videha, so she better say something about Videha too, which is very perfect. Ugraputraha Udajjam Dhanu Radijjam Krutva. In his quiver, he takes that Dhanu, that is bow in his hand, and he has only 2 arrows. Dvau Banavantau. But how are these 2 arrows? Sapatnati Vyadhinau. He is very sure that with these 2 arrows, he will kill all his enemies and he will win. Similarly, O Yajnavalkya, I have only 2 questions. If possible, answer them. Shankaracharya says, Brahmavit Chet. If you really know the Brahman, then answer my questions. Don't just shut my mouth. Don't just make me keep quiet. Answer them. First of all, before we go to those questions, aren't you stunned that the courage with which Gargi has come back, how does it come to her? I'll tell you how it comes. When there is a real pursuit of knowledge, it doesn't matter whether you are a man or a woman, not to that person, not to the society. Secondly, she was convinced. So the courage came by conviction. The courage came because of her pursuit of knowledge. And third and most important, the courage came because of her self-confidence and self-esteem, which is amazing. Real fascinating woman from ancient India. She said, she was so sure, that with these 2 questions, she would make Yajnavalkya keep quiet and she would win the Brahmodya. Now let's come to the questions. Yajnavalkya, of course, had to accept. When there is a philosopher, see now, I do not want to say a woman philosopher. She is a philosopher beyond any caste, creed, gender, and what we say, So when a philosopher challenges you with 2 questions who are sure to defeat you, these are the words Gargi uses, then it is important for Yajnavalkya to accept the challenge. He says, okay, I also like Gargi for one more reason. She does not break the protocol. She does not break the decorum of the court. She takes permission from all the Brahmins, all the philosophers, all the philosophers who are gathered there from King Janaka, and then addresses Yajnavalkya. This is important because, sometimes if you are overconfident, you cross the limits and then you say things which you shouldn't have said because it then tilts to arrogance. But she was not arrogant at all. And then she asks 2 questions. To be honest, for me and for everyone around, the question itself, both the questions itself are going to be difficult. So probably the answer is a little simpler compared to that because we all know what is Brahma, at least on academic level. Gargi says, you talked about all those Brahmaloka, Aditya Loka, Chandra Loka and all that. But tell me one thing, and listen to this very carefully. She says, Yajnavalkya, how does this happen that Surya Chandra Masau vidhrutau tishthatah. Surya and Chandrama, the sun and the moon, they stay away from each other. They move, but they never collide. They take their own course, their own orbits, their own velocity speeds and all, but they never clash. They never crash into each other also. How does this happen? Kasya prashasane. Under whose command? Who decides that? In other words, she is talking about this physical things, space. She's talking about space. And she asked this question. And the next question she asks is, Sarvam yadidam bhutam vartamanam bhavishyat, future, vartamanam cha, kasya prashasane idam sarvam bhavati? Under whose command does it happen? I'm surprised because the first question, I haven't given you the details, but the first question talks and pertains to the space. And this question, obviously, Bhuta Bhavishya Vartamana, pertains to time. And remember, space and time are very important elements in philosophy. On theoretical level, they are very important. I remember when I was in Ferguson College, Professor S.V. Bokil had taught us about Western philosophers. They were all men. And one of them, I think he was German, Kant. And he had first said that space and time are same. I'll come to this. Had I known Gargi more in those days, I would have told him that Kant was not the first one. Gargi was the first one. Anyway, Gargi says that space and time under whose jurisdiction, under whose command they work so perfectly well. Yajnavalkya is also surprised. And he says, Gargi, now that you have asked the question, let me tell you. And he says, Tad Aksharam. Instead of saying Brahman, he uses the word Akshara. Akshara is something which does not change at all, and that is Brahman. But the description, I must say something more about the description first. Both of them, they tell you that this space, which is below the earth and beyond the sky, Akashe. Now here the word Akasha is not used in the sense of sky which we see, like the clouds and all. It is not that Akasha. Akasha is something which is beyond the sky. It is beyond space. Even it is beyond the outer space. On National Geography channels, many times we see these programs. And there they talk about expanding universe. Yajnavalkya and Maitreya are discussing that. One of the very modern philosophers. Please remember that all physicists have turned philosophers in the end, whether it was Newton or Einstein or Stephen Hawking. When Stephen Hawking, he was the first modern philosopher to talk and give us a wonderful terminology. He talks about space-time singularity. That is, both are same. Gargi is using the same idea in different words probably, but she's tackling the same question, the same problem. And then Yajnavalkya says, everything happens, whether space or time or whatever you say, happens only under the jurisdiction, prashasana of Akshara. And he says, he gives many examples, not many, but he gives some examples. And he says, therefore, Pracha Nadyaha Shvetebhya Parvatebhya Avatirya, all those rivers which move towards east, Pracha, they come from the mountain, Shveta Parvata, obviously Himalaya, and they go in that same direction to the east. Who tells them to go to the east? right? And then about the time he says, Tasya va prashasanasya, sorry, Tasya va aksharasya prashasane gargi nimishaha. Nimisha is the time taken to blink your eyelid. Nimishaha. Muhurtaha. Muhurta is a moment. Ahoratrani, day and night. Ardhamasaha, uh, half a month. Masaha, months. Rutavaha, seasons. And Samvatsarani cha. And even the year, everything happens under Tad Aksharasya Prashasani. So first he says, talks about Akasha, and when Gargi asks him, Kasminnu khalu Akasha utascha protascha, he talks about Akshara. And this Brahma Jnana or this Akshara Jnana is something which is the real Upanishadic philosophy. Even today, all the scientists all over the world have started believing that there is some power, there is some principle which governs this entire universe, and we are unable to even understand that. And they call it expanding universe. And therefore he says, Etad vai khalu aksharam asya prashasane gargi. And then he said, Surya chandramaso vidrutau tishrataha, and all those things. So just imagine. And then Gargi is convinced. But before that, Yajnavalkya tells her many other things. He says, a person who understands Brahman, and by the way, Brahman is always described as na iti, neti, neti. It is not sukshma, it is not sthula, it is not dry, it is not wet, it is not big, it is not small. So, because it doesn't have any qualities of its own, like water, tasteless, odorless, colorless, and all those things. So this is what he says. And he says a person who leaves this world, that is dies, but they don't say die because the Atman never dies, who leaves this world without understanding this Akshara is called Krupana. So Krupana in Sanskrit, it means a poor fellow, It doesn't mean a stringent fellow. It means a poor fellow, Daridri. If he doesn't understand and leaves this world, he is a Krupana. And a person who understands it and then leaves this place is called a Brahmana, because he has understood Brahman and therefore he is called Brahmana. So just remember, Brahmana, unlike all those things which people have been saying about Brahmana and Brahmanatva, are not there in the Upanishads at all. So we better be very careful about that. And then Gargi folds her hand, says Namaste to Yajnavalkya, because she is convinced, because it is the first time she has got the knowledge of Brahman. And I'm very sure later on, like Maitreyi, even she would become his disciple. And not only that, she says to other philosophers who have gathered in the court that, oh philosophers, you better go home, because I'm very sure that none of you can match the wits and knowledge and the method and philosophy of this great person, Yajnavalkya. And this is where the Gargi Yajnavalkya Samvada ends. Like I told you, all these philosophies, they are woven with stories. They are always in conversational style. So it becomes easier for the reader or the listener to understand the meaning. The sentences are small. The similes are beautiful. It's at the same time, just as it is a philosophical discourse, it's a piece of literature which you can enjoy, It's a wonderful thing. And that is why Gargi has become the greatest woman philosopher in the entire history of the entire world. Okay? Not only India, not only Bharata, but all over the world, Gargi is considered to be the greatest one. Even then, I always say, there are many girls, who are named as Maitreyi, but very few who are named Gargi. In my life, I have met only one person whose name was Gargi. Anyway, so this is how the women philosophers, the intellectuals of India were, right from Bharati to Sulabha Brahmavadini, Maitreyi, Gargi, and in my invocation, I also said that I pay respect to all those women who had done Brahmaishana. Do you think only 4 women were Brahmavadinis? No, there must have been many more, because all these women, they must have learned from women philosophers, and there must have been more philosophers, but who are Adnyata. We don't know anything about them, unfortunately. And I would dedicate this talk of mine to all those Adnyata Stri Tattvajnani, because of whom, because of that tradition, even in 2020, we as women can show our mettle and have the courage of Gargi, have the confidence of Gargi, have the humility and understanding of Maitreyi, and also be judges like Bharati. Thank you very much.